welcome all to the Spring Forward Ditch Disposables event. We are all sponsored by the New Paltz Climate Coalition, the Interfaith Earth Action, and the New Paltz Climate Task Force. So we thank you guys as well. So we will have multiple panelists discussing different aspects about plastic waste. Our first panelist will be Megan Wolff with she is a policy director for Beyond Plastics, and she will be talking about the effects of plastics on our environment and our health. We also have Iris Marie Bloom. She's the director of Protecting Our Waters, and she will show us how we can pass local resolutions that can lead to municipal, county, and state legislation. We are hoping to have Lisa Lindsley on talking about sustainable business strategies for institutional.
Yep, I'm here. I've been here for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yep. I didn't see you.
It's okay.
Okay, so she is the director of investor engagement at Majority Action. So we will hear from her as well. And just again, the presentation, presenters will take some questions before the chat, or from the chat, before we move on to introducing our MAP program and the Tiffin program that we have. Yeah, just have your questions ready if you have any. And if there is time, we will answer any final questions after we show off our projects, the MAP and the Tiffins. So if that is it, I think, Megan, you can start.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot, Paris. It's great to be here, especially on what feels like absolutely the first real day of spring. My name is Megan. I'm the policy director at Beyond Plastics. I'm actually going to start my presentation with somebody else's presentation, which is a short video from the Story of Stuff, which it's an environmental advocacy organization that was founded by Annie Leonard that likes to talk about the supply chain and how much of a non-linear economy we have, and they are adorable and also incredibly to the point. So we'll just start with a 4-minute clip of their story of plastic, which really summarizes the whole thing perfectly. And then I'll take over and add a few bits that have come up basically since they made the video, and we'll take it from there. So, oops, I need to share my screen for you to see it. Let's try that. Okay. And we'll open this up, and here we go.
You've probably heard about a giant trash island in the ocean, or that poor sea turtle and the straw. Maybe you've even heard how plastic is being found inside the fish we eat. The plastic crisis gets a lot of attention, but the headlines usually focus on the plastic that ends up in the environment, and that's just part of the story. The truth is, plastic has a whole life cycle that's hidden from view, one that harms people and the planet from start to finish. Let's start at the beginning. Plastic is made from fossil fuels like oil or fracked natural gas. Extracting those fossil fuels and turning them into plastics creates a lot of pollution that most often affects marginalized communities nearby. As we've gotten better about using less oil and gas to power our lives, the fossil fuel industry found a lifeline in plastics. In fact, oil and gas companies are doubling down on plastic production, with plans to build or expand over 300 petrochemical plants in the US alone by 2025. But these companies already produce more plastic than we can use. So where's all that plastic going? A lot of it's flowing into new markets in places like Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Because more than any other product category, plastic isn't driven by the demand for it, but by the supply. Corporations like Unilever, Nestle, and Procter & Gamble are aggressively marketing single-use plastic products around the world. These companies go to places like Indonesia, where I live, and push their products onto communities that just aren't prepared to deal with all that plastic. Maybe they're used to using natural packaging. Maybe they live on a tiny island without a system of waste collection. And on top of that, countries in the global north are shipping their own plastic waste into these countries too. When you add that all up, It's no wonder so much of this plastic ends up in the environment. And globally, that's where a whopping 32% of plastic packaging ends up. 40% goes to a landfill, where plastic just piles up for future generations to deal with. And 14% is incinerated. Incineration is a nasty business, producing toxic smoke and fly ash. These super expensive facilities depend on plastic to burn everything else. It is oil and gas after all. So they want to see more plastic, not less. Then there's recycling. Unfortunately, it's not the solution that many people think it is. Just 14% of plastic packaging gets recycled, and only 2% is effectively recycled, meaning it becomes something as useful as before. The rest is downcycled into something worse. And most recycled plastic is only recycled once before ending up in landfills, incinerators, or the environment anyway. So it turns out that we can't burn, bury, or recycle our way out of this problem. And we can't just scoop all that plastic out of the environment either. That's like trying to bail out a bathtub with a teaspoon while the tap is on full blast. So how about we turn off the tap by shutting down the plastic machine? That means passing policies that create systemic change, like phasing out the single-use plastics that pollute the most, ending the fossil fuel subsidies that are fueling big plastic, and holding companies responsible for the plastic waste they create. That's how we can achieve our vision of a zero-waste future, where all of our products and packaging can be reused or repaired, effectively recycled, or composted, and ultimately how we create a sustainable circular economy that works for both people and the planet. Visit storyofplastic.org to learn more and take action.
Okay, so I love that video. I've watched it so many times, and every time I'm still affected by it. Let me start my own presentation now that you have the basics of, I guess we would call that Plastics 101 within Beyond Plastic. Let's see. Okay, presentation, where are you? I just closed the wrong window. That's not the right window. Like, okay, we're done with the story of plastics. Let's get rid of Explorer. Wrong idea. Okay, there you go. And I'll share again. And we will go to slideshow. All right. So I just wanted to say that I came to the plastics issue actually relatively recently. My training and my background is actually as a historian of public health and medicine. And I've been working for about 13 years at Weill Cornell Medical College and watching what was going on in the climate fight. And in particular, keeping an eye on plastics because it's what I think of as a wedge issue. It's an issue that really draws together all of the problems that result in climate change, from the petrochemical build out to overconsumption and over disposal. All of it comes together. And particularly for me, I noticed the health aspects. But as a historian, I also noticed something that really jumps out at me. All the major problems in medical history that were human caused were also human solved, and most of them really required basically political will. Their answers were simple. In this case, the answer is to stop producing so much plastic. Plastic is not an inevitability, just like not contaminating a water supply is a really good way to improve the health of your population. It's the simplicity and the brevity of the plastics problem that got under my skin. This illustration here is from the cover of a report I was just reading last night. And this basically shows you the curve of plastic production right now, going up and up and up. If we feel like we're drowning in plastic here, we haven't seen anything yet. This is what the plastic build out that they mentioned in that video is going to do, is to create this much more plastic. If we look at where we are on this curve, actually about half of all the plastic ever produced was produced only in the last 20 years, which, to put a pretty fine point on that, is a lot older than my cat. This cat's about 16, so she's seen about 3/4 of the plastic problem as we know it today. That is a short-lived problem. one that is highly reversible. And yet, as you look around and you seek solutions to this problem, people will act like it's inevitable, like it was always here, like there's no solution other than plastic for what we can package things in. But this is what we packaged things in during my own childhood in the 1980s. There were some plastics available, 7-Up, some of these drinks, yeah, but mostly we were using cardboard, we were using cans, we were using other mechanisms, and they still exist. They're still recyclable, and they're still ready to hand. And almost none of them cause the major chemical and health problems that the plastics problem does. So they mention in the film, where is all this plastic going? Well, it's not going anywhere. A lot of it's going into the ocean. We put about 15 million pounds of plastic in the ocean each year, somewhere between 9 and 15. There was a recent study to try to deduce how much of that was the United States, and they found that they couldn't tell, that it wasn't well enough tracked. So the answer to the scientific study was more studies. But beyond going into the ocean and into landfills and into incinerators, the thing that is worrisome about plastic for me is where it degrades into, because it doesn't biodegrade, but it does degrade. It fragments into smaller and smaller particles. Now we see the plastic floating around in the oceans, we see it blowing around on our streets, but you need a microscope to see where it's really going, and that's when it gets particularly insidious and particularly alarming. Microplastics go down to about the size of sand, but then they keep on going down and down and down. And as such, they are picked up in the hydrology cycle. They are evaporated into the air, they come back down as rain, they come down as snow, and they are literally everywhere. Studies have turned them up at the top of the highest mountain peaks, and we know that they're even at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. That is worrisome for a number of reasons. This is a microplastic filament on a snowflake, which I think perfectly illustrates what we're looking at. Microplastic filaments mostly come from clothing. So any clothing that you have that is not a natural fiber, like cotton or hemp or linen, is likely made out of some sort of plastic. So all of our polypro long underwear, all of our fleeces, it's very hard to avoid it. That stuff comes apart gradually, particularly when washed. And those tiny little particles are really that small. So they go up in the air and then they come down again. And what's happening as they come down is they're infiltrating the soil systems. There's a lot of agricultural waste that also puts plastic all over the place, including baling things in plastic. But effectively, even spreading things like sewer sludge onto fields, there's a lot of microplastics in sewer sludge, and they're enduring. They last, 80 to 90% of incoming microplastics are retained in sewage sludge, and they last in the field up to 15 years after the sludge application. This particular image right here is plant vasculature that has picked up a microplastic. Now we know that this affects crop yields, and that's what we do know. What we don't know yet is the impact of that on the wider ecosystem in general. We do also know that microplastics in agriculture affect invertebrates, terrestrial fungi, plant pollinators, so it's everywhere. And here's the human side of everywhere, because in addition to being in the plants, it's in the water. Bottled water in particular has quite a lot of microplastics in it. Microplastics are in beer, they're in fish. We basically eat the equivalent of an entire credit card every week, which is about 5 grams of microplastic. Last December, there was a study that documented that it's in the air we breathe. And last December, it was also documented that microplastics can cross into the placenta and are present in the human fetus at birth. This is alarming for a number of reasons. Insofar as they have a tendency to clog up the vasculature of plants, they actually also clog up the vasculature of humans. They are considered particle toxins and cause a lot of inflammation in the human body. And the studies on this are nascent, but we know that particle toxicity triggers immunoreactions. What does that mean? It means autoimmune diseases, anything that's related to inflammation, like autism, inflammatory bowel syndrome, arthritis, diabetes, all of those kinds of diseases that seem to be on the rise and are certainly insidious are related to the presence of this sort of thing. But the dangers are not just mechanical, they're also chemical and hormonal. That first graph that I showed you had both the petroleum, it had plastics going up and up and up, but it also had chemicals going up and up and up. And that's not an accident. One of those big figures was DuPont. The chemical additives that go into plastic effectively are plastic. They determine its properties, the stability, the color, the flexibility, but then they leach into the air, they leach into water, food, and body tissues, and very few of them, and there are thousands and thousands of them, are regulated. And we know that they're especially pernicious if they're things like plasticizers like bisphenol A, most people have heard of that, or its substitute, bisphenol S. What they do is disrupt signal transmission between nerve cells in the brain. So they can interfere with the neural circuits involved in perception. And in a fetus, that's a really big deal. So we know that low doses matter and that this stuff is floating around. So I can scare you all day, and I shouldn't, because there are other panelists here who have much better news than I do. But I do want to here, we'll skip a few of these, move up into the good news, which is the what can I do? And this is where Beyond Plastics steps in. Our solutions tend to be regulatory. We're less interested in what you can avoid buying, what you can avoid wearing, and more interested in how you can use your power as a citizen and actor to help stop the production of plastic where it is. We have to influence people on how to stop making plastics. And that comes down to the local level and to the grassroots. This is where the environmental movement started. This is where it is, and this is where it's going. Earth Day 1970 was actually modeled on the student anti-war movement. It was a series of teach-ins that lasted a week before the actual Earth Day. And there was also a lot of direct action, blockading streets, basically collaring power holders and teaching them what was going on in the environment, created a groundswell of public sentiment that impacted politics writ large and resulted in the passage of the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the creation of the EPA. And that was under a Republican administration. So this is where the power is. It continues to be even in this moment. Catalysts like Greta Thunberg have a tendency to inspire, to draw our attention and show us that actually, just like many of those poisons, 1 part per billion can do an awful lot. You may be 1 part per 8 billion as a member of the human race, but if you put yourself out into this cause, you can be seen and you can be heard. This other picture is the Sunrise Movement, a group of local chapters led largely by young people who are trying to influence policy for the passage of the Green New Deal. What we're doing at Beyond Plastics is supporting the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, and we're also watchdogging things like extended producer responsibility, which is this idea that we need to influence the way that packaging is created and maintained. We need to hold producers accountable. They need to redesign their packaging so that it is either biodegradable or actually recyclable, because the majority of plastic is not recyclable. And I see Mark waving me down. I will land this ship in just a minute. We want to get the toxics out. We want to make sure that recycling is recycling in the mechanical sense and not incineration or pyrolysis. Chemical recycling is not recycling. Right now, the New York State budget includes a provision for EPR that is not actual EPR, and quite literally puts the manufacturers themselves in charge of their own responsibility. Now, we've seen how that works. It's like trying to put the cigarette industry in charge of ending smoking. Not going to work. So we've already had some call-in days, and we're having an emergency meeting on Tuesday. If you contact me or you go to the beyondplastics.org website, you can attend that, and they will tell you how to get active. The other way to get active, again, is to contact me, because just like the Sunrise Movement, the Beyond Plastics is now organizing local chapters to get people active in their communities and have their activism spiral up. So we'll sponsor your chapter and give you a hand in organizing. We're running trainings. There are upcoming ones in May run by moi. And as of this afternoon, this is where the chapters from our last training just 2 weeks ago are located. So the idea is to fan out across the United States and create local change everywhere. And thank you very much. I'll pass the baton on to Iris. I apologize for going over time, but not sorry. I just hope you have enough time yourself.
Hey, everybody. It's incredible that we have nearly 50 people on this chat. And I am lucky to have kind of a good news segment about what we have accomplished and how we're accomplishing it. So thank you so much, Megan. That was really hard hitting and great presentation. So I'm Iris Marie Bloom, and I have been a fracking fighter and climate justice organizer and water protector since 2009. I'm a lifelong activist working on a lot of issues prior to that, including war and racism and violence against women. So no stranger to activism, but the plastics fight is really deep in my heart. I love our oceans. I love marine wildlife and all wildlife, and really all human communities. So along with the rest of you on this Zoom, it's really a passion. And some of the good news that we have includes international level all the way down to the local level. So I'm going to share my screen and start with the international, kind of a little bit of good news in case you missed it, is that we have a new situation internationally where the world has said yes to a cradle to grave plastics treaty on March 2nd. So this only happened 2 weeks ago, where we have 175 nations who've come together and created really the first ever framework for an international binding, legally compelling agreement. Their goal is to finish by 2024, which sounds like a long time. International collaboration does take time, but it could impact the oil and gas industry when it's complete, and it will certainly impact the plastics industry. So I want to do also a little rundown of other nations and what they're doing, because it's so inspiring and galvanizing, I think, to us. For example, Peru, Rwanda, Norway, and the EU led the fight for that framework. The US is nowhere in the leadership of the plastics fight internationally. And nations like Canada, for example, has declared plastic a toxic substance. In 2022, they're banning bags, cutlery, containers, ring carriers, stirrers, and straws as a nation, and more. There's other low-value plastic that's on that list. Rwanda put a ban on all plastic bags and packaging in 2009. And India is banning most single-use plastic bags and most single-use plastics, period, in this year, 2022. They've been phasing it in for several years. Kenya found that by 2017, 50% of cows had plastic bags in their stomach. So it's just incredible. And this is what Kenya kind of looked like. That's the sheer volume of plastic bags. And so they banned plastic bags. 80% of people are not using plastic bags now, and a lot fewer cows have them in their stomachs. It's not that it's solved, but France was a leader that really got my attention. And in 2016, France banned single-use plastics, including cups, cutlery, and takeout containers, not just the usual stuff. So they're, having done that in 2016, they are now in 2022 banning plastic packaging for fruits and vegetables. That's happening this year. So what's happening is that our activism works from the bottom up, from local to county to state to regional to national to international, and it also works the other way around. So I want to encourage everyone to pay attention to what whole countries are doing, because my attitude was, when I saw that in 2016, it was like, well, France did this, why can't Marbletown do it, right? And I think that's the attitude that everyone should have. So locally, Hudson Valley history, I arrived on Groundhog Day 2014, seems symbolic. And in 2014, the village of New Paltz banned plastic supermarket bags. And that took effect in April of 2015. I take no credit for that at all, but New Paltz Climate Action Coalition did help with that. In March 2015, so I had testified along with lots of fabulous people for the ban on polystyrene products in the Ulster County Legislature. That happened, took effect in March of 2015. March 2015, I'm just interweaving, it's not that I'm so significant, I'm just kind of telling my story as an ordinary person doing small things that make a difference along the way, because your story is also intertwined in that same way, I think everyone here. So I joined ECC 2015. In Marbletown, we were flailing on getting plastic bags done because the town said, well, we can't do it because the county hasn't done it. But we created discussion, and I wanted to get something done. So I wrote a plastic straw-free resolution. It was laughed at by journalists, by town board people, all kinds, and then we got it done. So we passed the first plastic straw resolution in the Hudson Valley in 2016. And then we started doing other things like awarding people, businesses that were doing the right thing. And the Last Bite Cafe, Scott Albright, when I went to him to talk about going plastic straw-free, he said, oh, I'll do better than that. I will ban all plastic from the shop. And he did. And that was incredible. So we gave him a Marbletown Green Award. And I just want to, as an aside, encourage people, when you're doing work locally, go talk to businesses. That's what I did. I just talked to half a dozen restaurants. I couldn't hit everybody, but I found the ones that would support it, and even got the SPY to come out to testify in favor of that plastic straw-free resolution. So the reason that that's significant is because that then trickles up to the county level. So we did another event. Things weren't happening quite fast enough. So we did another event in 2018. This was sponsored by New Paltz Climate Action Coalition. And that's Ilka in the front holding the sign, and Mark, that's Mountain Brewhouse restaurant folks. And the little girl in the center, she did a little street theater teaching all the grown-ups, here's how you drink out of a glass without using a straw. You pick up the glass, you tilt it to your lips, and you swallow. So it was pretty funny. And just want to show you that you can create positive events around plastic and put smiles on people's faces as part of that buildup. So then Ulster County finally passed its Skip the Straw law in 2019. And we then expanded it and amended it to include straws, stirrers, cutlery, and condiment packs. And again, I got local businesses like Rough Draft to lobby in favor of it. And so that's what I think everybody can do, is you can find local business owners and get them to speak up at the right time in the right way. It really has a big influence. So Ulster County has been moving along. You can always look at the Riverkeeper blog. They're really good. This is the Skip the Straw law that's amended, and it's very short. So you can look up Ulster County to see that law. Little Q&A. Suddenly, I'm not sorry, but they have a sign available that restaurants can put in the restaurant. So that's a useful thing because it's not very well enforced. We can all be enforcers, friendly and supportive and business-friendly enforcers. So in April 2019, I wrote a resolution called Woodstock Rethink Disposables Resolution. There's some folks on this Zoom from Woodstock, so we can't leave that out. And they formed a group to implement that. And that was a broad resolution, including many disposables and moving towards rethink. In the state, I'm just going to mention two victories. The plastic bag ban went into effect in March 2020, and the polystyrene ban just went into effect January 1st, 2022. So this is very current. So we're all really pushing hard together, and you do not have to be a legislator, a lobbyist, or a lawyer to write a law, and especially to write a resolution and get it passed. And we're all going to push really hard in closing when the Engelbright bill comes out for EPR in New York State in 9 or 10 days. We're going to push hard in favor of that, all of us together, and for his bigger, better bottle bill. So this is a lot of fast talking, and I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Lindsley, and can't wait to hear what she says.
Thank you, Iris. Thanks for the invitation to speak to you today. My name's Lisa Lindsley. I live in Gardner. I was invited by my fellow Tin Horn Uprising bandmate, Janelle Potter and saxophonist Janelle Potter to present to you. And while I do work at Majority Action, the views I'm going to speak to tonight are my own views and don't represent Majority Action. So with that, I am going to share my screen. So I come at the issue of plastics from climate risk, and in my day job, I work with large institutional investors to hold corporate boards accountable at companies that aren't mitigating climate risk. And you probably saw the 2017 report, it was called the Carbon Matrix Report, that showed that 100 companies are responsible.
Lisa,
Sorry?
we don't see your screen.
Oh, okay.
Can you share it?
Let me try that again.
That looks good.
Okay. Can you see it now? Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. So as I was saying, you probably saw the report, it was now 5 years ago, that 100 companies are responsible for 71% of the emissions driving climate change. Although, they'd like us to think it's all our individual responsibility and that none of us are composting enough. It's really about corporate profits and short-term gains. So that's kind of the world that I deal in. So you might be a shareholder if you have a 401k plan, if you own a mutual fund, if you own shares directly in your IRA or your brokerage account, or if you're a member of a pension fund, either from a corporate retirement plan or a state or local government retirement plan, such as the New York State Common Retirement Fund or one of the New York City retirement funds. So that's how you could possibly get involved from this angle. And I first got involved in plastics when I worked at an organization called Some of Us. I took a marine biologist to the McDonald's shareholder meeting in 2018. We presented a proposal asking McDonald's to stop using plastic straws, and our proposal was on an NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt the morning before the shareholder meeting, and the company agreed to start exploring and phasing out the use of plastic straws. So that was a nice way to be introduced to the topic. I'm going to talk a little bit about the efforts of an organization where I don't work, called As You Sow. And they have filed a large number of shareholder proposals at different companies on the issue of plastics. So they have 5 proposals pending at Amazon, McDonald's, and Kroger. These proposals are getting high levels of support. They also have proposals at Exxon and Phillips 66. They just had a settlement with Coca-Cola where the company agreed to increase the amount of beverage sales using refillable bottles to 25% by 2030, which, it's not everything, but it's something. So these are just examples of the types of shareholder proposals that get filed and go to a vote. And if they get a vote of even 20%, it's really a wake-up call that the board of directors needs to be paying attention to this type of a risk. And so I have here.
Lisa, your screen isn't moving.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry.
We still have first screen.
Okay. Well, that's not very helpful, is it? Can you see contacts for shareholder proposals?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the person at As You Sow. If you'd like to get involved, they do organize individual investors who hold shares in the companies where they're trying to file shareholder proposals. Tomorrow at 2 Eastern, they're having a webinar on what to expect this proxy season. So we're going into The season in April and May is when 98% of companies whose shares trade on the U.S. markets have their shareholder meetings, and all of these issues go to a vote. Can you see another slide now?
Same slide.
Same slide. Oh,
Physically move it, I think. We're
It's
still
not
at
moving.
the same slide.
okay.
There you go.
If you hit run slideshow, you'll have an easier time advancing them.
Thanks. I did. Okay, well, I'm almost finished. One factor that's important to get high votes on these shareholder proposals are the large asset managers. So BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Fidelity, and they usually oppose these types of shareholder proposals. So if you're a customer in any of those large asset managers, they control, the top 3 managers control 25% of the vote at almost every company in the S&P 500. And I put a couple of links in this slide to the reports that the organization where I work comes out with, and we measure the proxy voting performance of the large asset managers. Just today, a new organization launched called fixmyfunds.org. And it's designed for individuals to be able to use their relationships as clients of Vanguard, Fidelity, and BlackRock to make their voices heard in terms of getting those funds to be more responsible corporate citizens. So that's another place that folks can go who want to take action. So I will stop there.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you a lot. So I guess we're gonna move on to questions and answers if we have any questions in the chat.
Well, one thing that did come up in the chat that we really haven't touched too much upon is plastic substitutes like compostable utensils instead of plastic. How should they be treated? Maybe Megan?
I can say a little about that.
Okay.
Well, basically, we at Beyond Plastics, and I'll hand it to Iris in just a sec, but we generally are quite skeptical of what we consider to be false solutions. Most of these things are created and then touted by industry, including, as you saw, recycling itself was actually created by the plastics industry, at least plastics recycling was, in response to a pretty significant public relations problem that they were having in the 80s. It was never designed to work. Things like pyrolysis or chemical recycling, advanced recycling, the idea there is to use chemistry to reduce plastic to its base elements. But most of the time those base elements are then just burned. So it's reducing plastic to fuel, which is burned, which is, you could have just burned it in the first place. Or it's not scalable because in order to reduce those elements, to reduce the plastic to its elements, it has to be pure. It can't be contaminated. And if you look at the waste stream and what plastic recycling looks like, it's covered in stuff most of the time. So those labs are energy intensive, and much of what goes into them, because it has to be so clean, can't be put through the process. So all of those are false solutions. Bioplastics, I saw in the chat someone was commenting about the fertilizers and the petrochemicals needed just to produce the corn to create bioplastics with. Still has an enormous petrochemical footprint, and a lot of it doesn't actually biodegrade. It needs to be, and we have Angelina Brandt on this call right now, so she can weigh in on the exact details. But in order to compost, those things need to be held at a very high temperature for a very long time. And there aren't facilities in most places that can do that or will do that. So it's kind of the equivalent of saying, oh, look, here's a flush toilet bowl that we can use to solve our sewage problem, but then not creating a sewage system. through which to put what you have, so it's a distraction. We know that what will end the plastic pollution problem is stop producing so much single-use disposable plastic. These other things are kind of sideshows. Iris?
I agree completely, and just wanted to add a little bit to that. In terms of the restaurant industry, for example, what you'll find is that people who are saying no straw please would now get pushback from servers or bartenders or whoever who is saying, oh, but it's compostable. And I have lost track of the number of times that I've said, oh, really? Show me the box. And the box always says compostable in industrial facilities, which means it is not backyard compostable. And that's true for most of the so-called, compostable stuff. Very rarely is it truly compostable. And even then it only is compostable if you go to your own backyard and compost it. And if it's going in the Hudson Valley, everything that goes into the trash goes 500 miles. Some truck is going 500 miles round trip to take it to a landfill somewhere. So that's why our focus is on ditch disposables, not just ditch plastics, but ditch disposables, and moving our whole culture towards reusables. And of course, even single-use, aluminum and things like that, they are more recyclable. So I would, if I have to get a single-use something, I would rather get something other than plastic. But that has an impact as well. That's probably mined from bauxite, and there's a lot of fossil fuels embedded in that. So just going to reusables, a reusable culture is our goal.
Well, that's about it from the chat. I think we could probably move on, Paris, if you're ready to go.
Yeah, that is fine. Okay, guys. So our group has developed a couple of ways that we can reduce our personal use of plastic as a consumer. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of ways that plastic gets into our lives, but some of the choices we make can make a difference in how much we use and how much goes into our landfills and oceans and everywhere in our bodies too. So I'm going to share my screen now to show the My Alternatives to Plastics with it, which is a Google Maps. Once I get this set up, it's a My Google Maps. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see it.
Yes, we can.
Good.
Beautiful. Okay, so this is the My Alternatives to Plastics map. So the idea is that we are showing all of the places that you can go to get bulk goods or goods that you don't have to use any packaging for. You can bring your own containers. You can, basically mostly reusable containers, because obviously we want to reduce all types of waste, including paper. This is not the focus, but this is really, the paper is not the focus, but this is, the focus is no waste at all, including plastics. So we have this side scroller, shows all of the businesses that we have at this current moment. Our team went out and got information from all these places, and we have little descriptions. So I'm just, as an example, going to go here at the High Falls Food Co-op. If you're in the area, you might be familiar with it. So in the top part, we like to give a little summary of what they have. So if you're using this map, which is the idea before you go out, and you don't want to use as much plastic waste or disposables, you can see what these businesses have to offer. It was kind of difficult to get every single thing that they have at the store in these small description bubbles. So, like, for example, rice. I know the High Falls Food Co-op because I've been there. Multiple kinds of rice they have, like brown, white, the different nuts, multiple types of nuts. So it's just a little, it's a little provision thing that shows what they actually have there. And it includes their contacts. So if you want to know, oh, do they have this specific item where I can get it disposable free, you can always call them or check out their website. The real idea is that we're going to have businesses, once this hopefully takes off and we have a lot of people using it, actually maybe updating it themselves, but that is a different phase. Right now, we are in the phase of just getting the information out to people so that they can use it. I'm just going to show you another one once I move the screen here. You can use it just like a Google map, so it's very nice. All right. Here's another spot in Kingston, the Village Grocery and Refinery. Again, a lot of different options for bulk. It's mostly bulk. There might be different ways where you can like talk to the deli and see if they want to. You can just like use your own container for that, but primarily we just look for bulk areas where people can shop there. So yeah, and we also, at the same time of having all of these sustainable package shopping, you can also click on this tab and it shows you where you can use your Tiffins, which Janelle will talk to us in a minute about. But I just want to go over the map first. So the Tiffin-friendly restaurants are where you can use your Tiffins that Janelle will show us to take out food, so you don't have to use takeout containers or use it for your leftovers when you go in for restaurants. It's a really nifty item that is just great to use. So I can just show New Paltz. There's a lot of restaurants right now. Actually, let me click out of the sustainable packaging shopping. So it just shows the Tiffin-friendly restaurants. Right now we have primarily in New Paltz, but we're hoping to expand as people help us use it. We are very happy to get input from other people and their experiences with the Tiffin-friendly restaurants. Janelle will go into detail about that, but I just want to quickly show what it's like. So the map, there can be descriptions with it for the Tiffin-friendly restaurants, like Carmel Road. Let them know before you come in is the idea. A lot of restaurants aren't really used to Tiffins at this point in time, so it's good to just give them a heads up. Maybe the people that are the waiters that are dealing with your order not really familiar with it, but it's a great learning experience. And almost all the restaurants that we've tried out have been very positive experience. So you can contact them, and there's many types, and all of these, like some of them I had not had descriptions necessarily for the Tiffin-friendly restaurants, but if you have good experiences in other businesses that we don't have on the map, or if you have different experiences with the ones on the map, please let us know at the New Paltz Climate Action Coalition, and we would be happy to change up the map and keep it updated, because that's the idea. We want like the whole community to get really involved with this program. So that is the My Alternatives to Plastic map. And a great thing is you can use the Tiffins to carry out bulk products as well. If you don't have other containers, maybe you don't have a reusable container at home. And you can actually try all these different and wacky things with that, as our friend Eric has shown us at the High Falls Food Co-op. Do you guys want to show the video?
Sure, I can show the video. And for folks who are asking about Tiffins, great question. And we have wonderful Janelle to show you her Tiffin and talk about all that stuff in one moment. But first, we're going to show a video. Let me share screen, share sound, optimize. There we go. Oh, and then one moment. Let's see. Okay.
All right, what's up, everybody? I'm in the food co-op right now, and I just want to share with y'all something really important. Like, you can get your food in the bulk section, and you don't actually have to use plastic bags or paper bags, because they allow you to actually, the health department says that you can actually take from the bulk section using your own containers. But I forgot my container today, so I was like, damn, what am I gonna do? So I was like, you know what I decided to do? I went back here, and I was so excited to find out they have organic socks. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to use the organic socks to fill up my food. And I've already done a bag of quinoa, a bag of nuts, and now I'm going to do a bag of chickpeas because I like to make hummus. And so I'm going to put it inside here right now, and you'll see how easily it works. Now, these are dye-free. They're totally organic cotton and safe. So you can use this as your bag instead. There it is. All filled up. You can even use it as a stocking for Christmas if you wanted to. So anyway, just wanted to share that. And peace out, and make sure you go earth-friendly. Bye.
Okay, I will stop sharing my screen and go back on mute.
All right. Janelle, do you want to help us out with these Tiffins?
Absolutely. Whoop. I thought you'd never ask. So what is a tiffin? I'm going to stop blurring my background because that's going to cause problems with showing you what a tiffin is. So here we go. A tiffin is a stainless steel container with several compartments that clamp together to make one easy to carry item. They're easily washed and can even be sterilized in a dishwasher. They can be used thousands of times, replacing thousands of single-use disposable containers. They come in all shapes and sizes. As a matter of fact, years ago, I got another tiffin here that I used for quite some time that's oblong. They're not as easy to find, but they literally come with many different sizes and shapes. So tiffins are extremely popular in other parts of the world. And in fact, there's even a profession in India that has evolved to deliver tiffins. And it's called a dabbawala. Love that word. The dabbawalas do a lunchbox delivery and return system that delivers hot lunches from homes and restaurants to people at work in India, especially in Mumbai. The lunch boxes are picked up in the late morning, delivered predominantly using, I gotta love this, bicycles and railway trains, and returned empty in the afternoon. Talk about a system that would lower our community greenhouse gas emissions, that's for sure. You'd be amazed at how efficient the system is in Mumbai. And just for fun, I would highly recommend watching the 2013 Bollywood film, The Lunchbox, which is based on a dabbawala service. And it actually is a sweet love story that happens to feature tiffins. But getting back to New Paltz, we are blessed here to have many wonderful restaurants. And I was actually frustrated because during the pandemic, I wanted to support local restaurants, but I didn't want to waste all that single-use packaging. And occasionally I would, try to support them, but I just didn't feel good about it. And one day I heard about the Tiffin project in some other parts of the world, one in Canada. And what I discovered is that restaurant owners want to do the right thing. And in fact, many restaurant owners here in New Paltz put their to-go orders in compostable containers, but they actually cost the restaurant quite a bit of money, more than typical styrofoam or plastic containers. And alas, despite their best intentions, many of these containers go to landfill. And contrary to popular belief, things do not compost in a landfill. Landfill is an anaerobic environment that does not really compost anything. And our landfill, by the way, is almost 500 miles round trip. So huge greenhouse gas emissions just to take something to the landfill. However, even if you could find a location to compost your container, I'm talking about compostable containers, they are still single use and continue our addiction to single use items, distracting us from the most environmentally beneficial practices of reducing and reusing. So compostable containers take a lot of resources to make and are rarely actually composted. Plus, you may not know this, but many of these containers that look all environmentally friendly because they look like cardboard, they're coated in PFAS. And PFAS is a chemical that will migrate to the food and you do not want to eat it. So, want to make a difference? Buy a tiffin and start your journey of saving resources and enjoying your food more. They are great at keeping food separate and prevent your meal from getting soggy or squashed before you eat it. It is also way healthier than eating out of a cardboard container with that PFAS I mentioned. And I noticed personally that it really does hold the food nicely. So how do you buy a tiffin? There are retailers that sell them, and you could go online and go to that big business that I think it begins with an A, and order one. But they're not inexpensive when you buy them one at a time. They can retail around $30. To make them affordable, the CAC, the Climate Action Coalition, and the New Paltz Climate Smart Task Force have started a collaborative program where we buy the tiffins in large quantities at wholesale prices and resell them to you, anybody, at cost, which right now, including our cost of shipping, is only $15. And for that, you can get one of these 3-tiered tiffin, and we also have 4-tiered tiffins here, 4 different sections. So, and if you want to know how to buy one, you don't know, if you know somebody in this group, just check with them, or simply email newpaltzclimatesmart@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to put you in touch with how you can get a tiffin. So now you're a proud owner of a tiffin. Let's imagine you are. What comes next? When you call and order your food for takeout, tell the restaurant that you'll be bringing your own container. And when you drop off your tiffin or you come back to pick up your food, be sure to check that the server knows how it opens with the clamps. If the restaurant server has ever seen a tiffin before, they might initially be a little confused, but I have had the experience that as soon as they understand it, they go, oh, wow, these are really cool. I took my tiffin to a restaurant recently just to take home food that I wasn't going to eat while at the restaurant. And I can't tell you, I had it sitting on the table and I must have had 3 or 4 people stop and ask me, you know, another server, the restaurant owner, another patron. So they really do generate interest. And once people understand them, they seem to really get it and like them. So bring your tiffin to any restaurant that you dine in too, just in case you order a meal that is too big and you want to bring home the food. I know I've had that sinking feeling many times at a restaurant where my eyes are bigger than my stomach and I don't want to waste food. So I'm like, oh, do I eat everything on my plate and not waste the food, or do I get a take-home container because I forgot to bring mine? It's a painful choice. So the best choice is always bring your tiffin in the restaurant. And that way you'll have something to take it home if you have extra or your dining partner has extra. And next, tell us your experience with the restaurants, because as Paris pointed out, we have this map, My Alternatives to Plastic, and we want to keep adding to it and add more and more restaurants that are, quote, tiffin friendly. So let us, you can send me an email again, that's newpaltzclimatesmart@gmail.com, and tell us, hey, I just ate at such and such restaurants, it's in this town, it's at this address, I brought a tiffin, they didn't have any problem with filling it. Or even if it's a questionable experience, like it's like, gee, I think that they need somebody to come there and talk to them more about it because they were confused. Fine too, but do give us feedback. So we recommend putting your clean tiffin in your car so that when you go to the restaurant, you always have it with you. Much like many of us now leave our reusable shopping bags in our car for those unplanned stops at the market. What if you rarely eat out? Maybe you tell me, Janelle, I never eat out. If you pack a lunch or a snack for yourself, a tiffin is an awesome way to carry the food with no waste. No need for a plastic baggie for your sandwich or munchies. Just pop it in your tiffin. Great way to pack a lunch for your kids. So you can even get a tiffin carry bag to help you carry it. I love this. I got one of these that fits one of my larger tiffins, and it's kind of like a crossbody bag that fits the tiffin, and I can carry it hands-free and still do other things while having my tiffin. It actually kind of insulates a little bit. So everyone likes experiments and demonstrations, right? I had somebody ask me once, Janelle, but I don't know, will it work for a soup? And I said to myself, I said to them, I think so, but I wasn't really sure. So what did I do? I came home, I got my tiffin. Here's one, this one's called the snack pack size. Take off my cover. I'm like, okay, I didn't have time to make soup, but this is a really low calorie soup called water. Doesn't get any thinner than that, right? Okay, fingers crossed, guys. What do you think is gonna happen? I don't know, I got my computer right here. I don't wanna get my computer wet. I'm just clamping it. It's kind of loud, sorry about the loud noise, but so I just clamping that shut and I'm like, okay, what do you think? Is it gonna leak? Oh, right over my computer, not a drop. Yes, it's proven, leak proof. Just try doing that with one of your paper containers or one of your plastic containers when the lid starts to pop off. Won't work. So, success. Now, you know what? I don't know about you guys, but I didn't have time to eat dinner yet. So I'm getting kind of hungry. You want to see a tiffin of another kind? This is a 4-tier tiffin. Is that the 4-tier? No, wrong one. That's the 3-tier. I think it's time to eat. I'm just gonna pop this baby open and see what's in here. Oh, I got some nuts on the first layer. Always good for a snack. I've got, of course, salad for the next course. And then I have a sweet potato that I cooked in my solar oven today. Wasn't it a gorgeous day? It was so sunny. And a sweet potato cooked in your own solar oven is awesome, let me tell you. And the best part, yes, sorry, I'm gonna eat in front of you. Pie. Yesterday was pie day, 3.14. So I gotta have a piece of my pie. So look at that. Now you just try that with your average cardboard take-home container. I would have sweet potato on top of my pie, and I'd have some juice coming over for my salad. But no, with the tiffin, it's all separate, and it is ready to go. Clamp it up, and I'm on my way. I think I'm going to put it on my bicycle though today, rather than my car. So I hope I've sold some of you on the idea of getting a tiffin and giving us feedback so we can include them in our map. And I think I forgot to give you my introduction. I am Janelle Piotr, and I am the New Paltz Climate Smart Coordinator and a member of the Climate Action Coalition. So onward, thank you.
Awesome, that was awesome. Thank you. It looks like Iris has a mini tiffin that she wants to show off. Iris, do you want to do that?
Sure. I don't know what to call this, but here's like the regular tiffin, and here's this little baby tiny container, and what it's for is sauces. So I just wanted people to know that such a thing exists, because it's been the bane of my plastic-free existence for quite a while, and Janelle has one as well. And what happened, the reason that I started using these, it costs a couple dollars, but again, I can use it thousands and thousands of times, 10,000 times. And I took my tiffin to a restaurant, got some takeout, and in the top layer of the tiffin all by itself was this little plastic container of some kind of cream or sauce. And I was like, oh my God, even when you use the tiffin and tell them no plastic, put everything in there, they still give you plastic. So if you give this to restaurant, or if you go to Karma, Krishna Kitchen, the Indian place in New Paltz, you can put a lot of sauce in this little thing. And I direct little protecting our waters, and we also got 64 tiffins, so we're ready to help out. That's it for the tiffins.
Amazing. All right. Does anyone have any questions about the map?
Well, there's been quite a back and forth in the chat as the demonstration was going on.
It seems like it, yeah.
Besides having an Academy Award for our newest star, Eric. But, there was one thing that came up that perhaps Janelle could address, and that's her experience with the county health department.
Yes, that's a very good point. during the height of the pandemic, when I really got this idea about the Tiffins, I thought, oh gosh, what if this would not fly with the health department? I better check. So I called and talked to the health department inspector for restaurants in Kingston that covers New Paltz restaurants, described the Tiffin and how they can be dishwasher, washed, sterilized, and he had absolutely no problem with them. He thought they were a great idea. So no fear that it's a sanitary issue. And, you know, I have to give credit to Iris, because even before the Tiffin project idea came along, she's always told us, you know, all you have to do when you call and call in your order is saying I'm bringing my own container. And if they don't like that, you can say, okay, fine, just plate it. And when I get there, she put it in her own container. So, I mean, that's a brilliant workaround if you do have a situation where, for whatever reason, they're reluctant, is just have them plated on their normal plate. And when you get there, you can put it in whatever container you brought, such as a tiffin.
How do they determine the weight of the goods if you take it, say, to the High Falls Co-op?
Yeah, actually, it's called a tear weight. And almost all of these places that are on the map will do a tear weight. So that just means that they would pre-weigh your container. It might be a mason jar, it could be a tiffin, it could be your organic white sock. They weigh it, then you fill it, and then they weigh it again. And most of these places get pretty used to doing it. And first you might feel like, oh, I don't know if they'll do this, but they're very used to it. And tear weight's usually not an issue.
Do all restaurants that are on our list allow you to come early and pick up what you've ordered? Do we know that?
I'm not quite understanding the question of order early.
When we're going to order takeout, do the restaurants allow you to come in early and pick up or exchange your tiffin and pick up your have them put the food into the tiffin so that you can take it home?
I would encourage you to come early, just to make sure they don't accidentally forget and put it in their own disposable container. You definitely want to make sure that your tiffin is there in time for them to fill it without wasting a container.
There's a question about reusable bags that other people could answer as well as yourself. What reusable bags do you recommend?
Well, I'll comment and then other people can. I prefer cotton ones because you can launder them. Unfortunately, I see a lot of reusable bags that are made of plastic and they don't last all that long and they disintegrate and eventually they're garbage too. A cotton bag could be made from old sheets and it could be composted. So I prefer the cotton bags.
I second that. I've had a lot of those plastic bags, reusable bags that they have just break on me like pretty quickly too. Cotton is great.
I think we've gotten through the questions, unless anybody else has others. I don't know if we can unmute people, Jess. If she's with us.
I'm here. I'm not sure how to unmute people.
Well then, any more comments from our panelists?
I have one more. Just for fun, I have to tell you, I discovered another item that's super fun. It's called a dhaba. There was a movie years ago about an Indian restaurant competing with a French restaurant, and he inherited spices from his Indian culture in this little box. And I was always fascinated. I'm like, that's so cool, these little boxes of spices. Well, it turns out you can buy I don't want to tip it on the ground here. If I can tip it my camera, that's a better way. So I have all my teas in here. And I could have spices, but now I can take my dhaba to like a place like Ridge Tea and Spice, And I can just have them fill, right? They don't even have to use little paper bags. They could just pop the tea or the spice right into my daba. And I find this really fun because when I go to make tea, I just open this up and I've got my choices and I can mix and match. And so you might find it quirky, but I find it fun. So just another possibility.
We want to talk a little bit about the, we want to reinforce the EPR state stuff. Maybe before we
Absolutely, that was my next question.
Right, but while we're on Tiffins, do we want to talk about phase 2, about the circular economy?
Yes, down the road, what I'm picturing, once we get restaurants really getting what Tiffins are, getting more excited about them, people really liking them, there's a certain point that we could take this to the next level. And that is to feature some restaurants in a pilot where we could have a tiffin exchange program. So say these half a dozen restaurants all decided to go with a tiffin of this size. You just would get your food. You just either call in your order and say, I'm gonna have it in a tiffin, please. And they pack it in a tiffin and you bring in the last tiffin you had that you washed at home. And then they run it through their dishwasher and can give it to the next person. Think about milk bottles, like the glass milk bottles that you can get at, say, Health and Nutrition, or Lord forbid, I hate to make the reference, but propane tanks. It's refillable. There's no reason that we cannot have more refillables. And this Tiffins could become, if there were enough buy-in, a refillable at different restaurants. You buy one once, and then you're in the program, you're in the Tiffin project. So thank you for asking. So we're looking for restaurants that will be kind of all in with this idea. And I know that Iris has found a restaurant that's actually willing to sell them too. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's Tanma Ramen in Kingston. If anybody wants to go there, they make wonderful ramen. It's Yoko Yamamoto. She's supports all environmental things, and yeah.
You want to go ahead about the EPR?
Shall I say a little bit about it, and then Megan, you want to chime back in?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Iris? I would also talk a little bit about the expanded bottle bill because it's so much of a circular economy thing, and it's
that's what I mean. Both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just because we were really talking fast, all of us, this whole time. So just wanted to really make sure that everybody's clear, because it is kind of confusing that where the anti-plastic movement and the ditch disposables movement is right now, the reusables movement in New York State is that we're all in alignment that the HOCO proposal for EPR, extended producer responsibility, is bad. That's what she's got in her budget. We have to oppose that. It doesn't match any of the criteria. It's an industry influenced proposal. Same thing with the Kaminsky bill. That is no good, not good enough. And so we're opposing both of those. And Assembly Member Engelbright is going to come out with his excellent, really good, top-notch EPR bill in about 9 days or so. So we don't have, that's why we don't have the bill number yet, but we'll all push that together. We'll really need your help on that. And then he'll also come out with a bigger, better bottle bill with a bill number shortly after that. So this is all going to happen over the next couple of weeks to try to not get the bad bill in the HOCO budget. Budget has to be done by April 1st, and then to get the good bill passed in the state legislature. And the good bill is going to be sponsored by Engelbright. I hope just that much is, I hope you took notes on that much, and please, do what the e-blasts say. Do you want to add something, Megan?
Yeah, well, the e-blasts say to actually join Engelbright himself with Beyond Plastics next Tuesday. And I was looking for the link for the registration, but I can also email it to anybody who wants it. Dude, I just had it in front of me. This is mind-boggling. Basically, the push right now is to make sure that the bad EPR, which is worse than no EPR, gets out of the budget before it passes. Because if it passes, then it's there. Then it's a thing we have to actually work to get away. Right now, it's an idea. But the idea that is there allows manufacturers to regulate themselves and to write all their own rules, which is kind of what's going on anyway. So it would block the future Engelbright bill if it goes through on April 1st. In addition to extended producer responsibility, which means that producers have to go back and look at their manufacture, look at their product itself and say, how can I better design this product so that it A, uses recyclable plastics, which are numbers 1 and 2, in a shape that is recyclable. You know, right now, when you see those chasing arrows, you see the number. A lot of things that are number 1 and 2 are still not recyclable because they're too small, they have different components, various machinery in different parts of the country, MRFs can't handle them and sort them accurately. So like clamshells, not recyclable in Ulster County. But if companies rethink that and say, okay, I'm going to produce an item that uses a recyclable plastic in a shape and a weight that is recyclable, that would solve an enormous amount of the problem. And also to incorporate recycled plastics into their packaging. Right now, very little recycled plastic is included in packaging, and that means that there's not much of a market for the plastics that are recycled in the first place. They cost more than virgin plastic because virgin plastic is subsidized. And we need to give the manufacturers an incentive to have to use them, to use them. So those are things that go into EPR. The bigger, better bottle bill is in a way more exciting even than that, because if you look at what the initial bottle bill did, which it's now 40 years old, it reduced litter of bottles and cans by more than 70% overnight, because it gave everybody an incentive to pick them up and take them someplace. And that incentive was 5 cents, which 40 years ago actually was a fair little chunk of change. It was passed on the idea that that would be pocket money for children, because children might be the ones who would be picking up bottles and cans. It wasn't realized that actually no, grown-ups would wind up creating an economy with this, that people who live marginal lives and are marginalized in the economy can use this as a real economic niche. But that niche is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because the deposit hasn't gone up in 40 years. So the bottle bill will double the deposit to 10 cents from 5, which makes a huge difference if you're on the margins. Makes a huge difference to what you're going to throw out your car window or, you know, drop on the lawn in the park. And it's also going to expand the range of bottles that have a deposit that can be accepted. So for instance, iced tea bottles didn't exist when the original bottle bill was passed. There are so many types of bottle packaging. Judith Enck, our president, always keeps various bottles on her desk for exactly this moment, so she can pick them up and show you, like, this doesn't have a deposit on it. Isn't that nuts? This actually would, because it's scrap metal. But anyway, the expanded bottle bill will promote a circular economy in ways that we haven't seen in literally 40 years and that we desperately need. So those are the provisions that we're chasing the hardest right now. Like you all saw, I'm kind of cuckoo for toxins, and getting a lot of the toxins, the known toxins, out of the plastic manufacturing process is also a part of extended producer responsibility, because items that were created with toxic plasticizers and endocrine disruptors, those stick around and they come out again on the next cycle when you're recycling. So they will be embedded in recycled plastics. We need to not put them in the first place. And there are alternatives. Sometimes those alternatives, for instance, with bisphenol S, are as bad as the original, but we know that we can move outside of certain families of chemicals to create plastics. So again, back to the design table. I think I've said enough. We can take questions.
I wonder if you might be able to share that side-by-side handout that shows the what a good EPR has in it versus what has been proposed.
Absolutely. I have it on my screen and it's not super like visual. It's easiest to email it or mail out a link. Let me see where I have the link actually on my computer. This is it's a document that explains what's in Hochul's bill versus what would be in an ideal EPR bill. And it's really effective in getting the point across as to where this bill falls down and where a good bill would work. So let me just get that for you. I'm going to tap dance. You can take another question while I'm doing that.
I do want to mention to everyone that because we're going to close up soon, that if you want to use the map, which obviously we want all of you to be able to, we'll have it in the follow-up email. And as well, if you want to hear more about this stuff, or are you interested in these groups, you can put your email in the chat and we can add you to the mail list of all of our updates. Oh, as well as the Tiffin contacts are in the chat, but we will also send that in the follow-up email.
Yes, the New Paltz Climate Smart program does do a monthly newsletter. And in that newsletter, you'll find links to monthly meetups that we do on a whole variety of topics, as well as our monthly Climate Smart book club, which has been really a tremendous way to read a lot of really great books on this topic, very powerful. So if you want to receive the New Paltz Climate Smart newsletter, you can either pop your email in the chat or send an email to newpaltzclimatesmart@gmail.com, and we can make sure you're added to that mailing list.
And I'll send out that document can go out in the follow-up. I think you just said that. It's easier to email it directly, but now you also have a link. It's in the chat. But come on the 22nd. Oh yeah, I was looking for the registration link.
Yeah, come on the 22nd. Oh, while Megan is looking for that, sorry, I was looking for that slide. I'll just say some of the elements verbally, if that's helpful, because people have asked what are the elements that are good and bad. So one is that the Hochul bill does not set standards to reduce, reuse, and then recycle. Instead, it just focuses on recycling rather than reducing and reusing. Two is that it should eliminate toxics, and the Hochul bill does not eliminate toxics. And by Hochul bill, I mean, you know, the budget proposal. One is that there should be no plastics burning, and the Hochul budget proposal does not address that. Another the main point is that there should be strong oversight and accountability, and that's a total fail with the Hochul budget proposal. And there you go. Did you find that screen, Megan?
I did. Well, I found the link. If you click on it now, it's ridiculously long. It's like 1,000 characters, but just click on it and enter your information and you're registered. Yeah.
Okay,
and that thing about burning plastic is rebranded in the Hochul bill as recycling.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Come on. Whew.
Want to bring us out, Paris?
All right, sounds good. Yeah. So I already mentioned where you can find this information. So just some good takeaways to take from this. We have these great links where you can have action. You can do actions yourself to pass local resolutions, advocate for legislation banning single-use plastics. We know we can do it. Other places have done it. County, state, federal level, all of it makes a difference and sends it sends messages to industry that they need to change as well. And obviously, based on what we've given you, the maps and the Tiffins, you can reduce your own personal single use. You know, everything counts. Every bit of it will impact the earth and us. And so, you know, doing as much as you can to reduce that, please, you're welcome to use the maps and the Tiffins, and we hope you do. And we hope you join us on this adventure of trying to, you know, make reusables the way of the future rather than plastics. And obviously, lastly, Hochul's bill, we're all, at least many of us, I assume, are New Yorkers. You know, you can advocate to the governor and to your assembly members and senators that you want the stronger bottle bill and the stronger extended producer responsibility to pass. So I just want to thank everyone, the Interfaith Earth Action, New Paltz Climate Action Coalition, and New Paltz Climate Smart Coalition. Thank you all so much. The speakers were great: Lisa Lindsley, Iris Marie Bloom, Megan Wolff, and Janelle Piotr. Thank you so much. This was amazing. And thank you all for attending.
Participants have been awesome.
And thank you, Paris, for being our EMC.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Paris.
No problemo. All right.
The
Good night.
one political action I would add is to
Yeah.
talk about it all the time. Talk about this issue because people are discouraged, people do care, and they don't realize there's stuff you can do.
And it's so winnable. It's so winnable.
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
It's a movement.
Yeah.
All right, I'm signing out. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, all.
Do it for the earth.
Woo!